We're going to get started about 9:02 morning, be Friday. Right. As people are still coming in, excuse me, as people are still coming in, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. So for those who don't know me, my name is Emilius White. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the pleasure of serving as the interim director for the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity in the College of Liberal Arts. I'm thankful that you've all taken the time to join the ninth semi-annual gathering. While this is our ninth gathering, the current context of our nation with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion and concerns among members of our community for their safety and well-being based on specific aspects of their identity makes gatherings such as this more important. This is particularly true right now for members of our community who are Somali and others who are fearful because of federal actions targeting various communities in Minnesota. This is the first gathering that has occurred under our new name, the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity. I wanted to share our mission statement because although we added community engagement to our name, I wanted to make clear that our office's efforts to advance community and public engagement within the college is more than just cosmetic. So the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, or the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity, exists to manifest CLA's values of respect, diversity, and social justice, and our commitment to our land-grant mission. We do this by fostering a college culture where diversity is welcomed and celebrated, equitable practices are embedded in college operations, inclusion is prioritized throughout the experience of our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members, and community engagement is woven throughout the college. Additionally, our multiple commitments to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and community engagement reinforce each other, leading to a stronger College of Liberal Arts. When community engagement was initially added to what was the Office for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion back in 2021, it was with the intention of leveraging the synergies between DEI and community and public engagement that can exist. We will be more intentional about those synergies moving forward, and in addition to advancing all types of engagement. It's fitting that our first set of presentations will highlight various community engagement initiatives that reflect CLA's values of diversity, respect, and social justice. This will be followed by a presentation regarding the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub, which has not been featured in one of these events in this way. And then we will wrap up. We'll have an opportunity to hear how each of the college's Compass 2030 strategic priority teams have embedded diversity, equity, and inclusion into their planning, their engagement, and their content. Before going on, my colleague Adriana Torboda, Administrative Coordinator, will review our access check with you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to talk through the access check script. I'll be reading the bullet points, and this link to the access check script will also be in the chat. At the start of our time together today, we like to start with an access check. We have added in the chat links to the slides we are using today, as well as the slide deck. Captions have been enabled. Please note that these captions are not perfect, as these are auto captions. We invite you to turn on your video if you are able, but understand that you may be in spaces where it may not be an option. Please share your name when you unmute or share verbally in the Zoom space to help us identify who is speaking. We know that some of you join while occasionally moving around your physical space while on Zoom. We ask that you turn your video off while there is motion in your background to reduce distraction and motion sickness for others. To help us and your fellow learners refer to each of you in the way that most validates and affirms your identity, we ask that folks use the Zoom feature to change their display name to include your preferred name, as well as your pronouns if you feel comfortable sharing them. We invite you to take care of yourself as necessary during today's session and take breaks as needed, although we do have a 10-minute break scheduled for around 10:25. If you need any assistance during this time in the Zoom space regarding access, please connect with Nicholas Lehman via private message. Any feedback or issues with accessibility, please email us directly at cladicee@umn.edu. Thank you.
Thanks, Adriana. Before continuing and getting into the meat of our event, our office would like to acknowledge, well, first I'm going to offer land acknowledgement and then a labor acknowledgement. Our office would like to acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus is located on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of Indigenous people. The university relies on Dakota lands ceded and actively contested in the treaties of 1837 and 1851. We acknowledge this place has a complex and layered history, and that using terms like ceded, even as those concessions were contested, erases and obscures more than it reveals. We further acknowledge that the University of Minnesota and its founding Board of Regents supported policies and practices that led to the genocide, forced removal, land expropriation, and tremendous and continuous transfers of wealth, while simultaneously working to undermine tribal sovereignty, Indigenous rights, and diverse ecosystems. Next slide. We are committed to ongoing efforts to recognize, support, and advocate for American Indian nations and peoples, which includes but is not limited to amplifying the work of the Truth Report and continuing to engage with Indigenous students, staff, faculty, and community members. And with regard to the labor acknowledgement, we remember that our country is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the United States from the African continent, and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented people who contributed to the building of the country and continue to serve within our labor force. It is our collective responsibility to interrogate dominant histories, to repair, harm, and to honor, protect, and sustain this land. And now I will continue a tradition that started with our first meeting back in 2021, 2022. And Nicholas, you can stop sharing the agenda for a second, or sharing the slide deck. I want to formally welcome you into this gathering. The exact origins of this radical welcome are unknown, but the original kernel might be traced to Stephanie Speller's vision and practice, with some minor additions from me, as well as some edits due to time constraints. I want to welcome all of you to the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity's semi-annual gathering. I'm going to take a few minutes to welcome our full selves. I welcome all the ways that you may be putting some things on hold so that you could be with us this morning, be they personal or professional. I want to welcome those whose families go back multiple generations in this region and nation, and those who just began. All of you are welcome. Welcome to those who feel at home in this region, those who feel it in another place, and those who aren't sure where home is. All of you are welcome. I want to welcome each of your ethnic, racial, and ancestral backgrounds, and to the ways in which they define and shape us, and all the ways in which you are connected and not connected to those. Welcome to all of the gender expressions of yourselves, and to all of the ways that each of you expresses your sexuality. All of that is welcome here. Welcome to your religions and faiths and spiritual practices and traditions, and to those who choose not to hold a practice. And welcome to the questions and the doubts and the searching. All of that is welcome. I want to welcome you across a range of possibilities, challenges, and opportunities with regard to your senses, the way your body moves through the world, and the way you process information. Welcome to each of you across all ages. Welcome to the ways in which your numerical age speaks to your particular wisdom in this moment in time. You are welcome. Welcome to the work, paid or unpaid, that each of you do in the College of Liberal Arts, at the university, and in your community and in the world. Welcome to the ways in which that work may or may not define you. Welcome to the educators in each of you and the learners in each of you. Each of you are welcome. Welcome to your minds and intellects. Welcome to your bodies, the unique container that each of you sits in, and all of the forms you show up in. Welcome to all of your emotions regarding what's happening in Gaza, in Israel, in Ukraine, Sudan, and other nations around the world. I want to welcome the relationships we have had to each other and to those we have known who have known each other for a long time, and to those who are meeting for the first time. All of this is welcome. I want to welcome your exhaustion, anger, and fear, your passion and energy for change. I want to welcome your concerns about the future of our nation and the impact that future may have on you and those who you love and those who you don't know, but whose well-being concerns you. I want to welcome the anger and fear that is the result of unwarranted xenophobic attacks on members of our college, university, and local community. Welcome to those who are still navigating fear and health challenges related to COVID. All of this is welcome here. Welcome to all of these parts of ourselves, what we have named and not named. We invite you to look around the screen for those who are able and recognize each other. Each of you is so welcome. The invitation is to be here, not to escape the world, not to retreat from it, but to meet it in ourselves and each other and in what we create together. So on behalf of the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity, I welcome all of you and all of you to our gathering. If you would like to unmute yourself, I invite you to use your voices for the next 30 seconds to welcome each other into this shared space.
Good
Welcome,
morning.
everyone.
Morning.
Welcome. So glad you're here.
Happy Friday.
Thanks for amplifying this welcome. I will now invite my colleague, Stephanie Morgan, Associate Director in our office, to share our agenda, our grounding assumptions, and then to introduce our speakers.
All right, welcome again, everyone, and good morning. So we can get started. I'm going to go over our overview for the morning and touch on our agenda. From there, we'll go into our grounding assumptions so that we all may engage thoughtfully with each other throughout our morning. So we're starting out as you are experiencing the welcome and the overview right now on the agenda. Next will be our various presentations from folks within our community, including our Ridges Department, other members of the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub and their various residencies within that. And then also the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub will have a presentation. We will have a break in between all of that. And then we will end with a panel about embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into our strategic plan with members of the strategic plan working groups participating in that panel. We'll end our morning like we typically do with final comments and notes of appreciation for all of the engagement with our office, the support and care that we receive from our community. So thank you for the agenda, Nicholas. Go to the next slide. In terms of our grounding assumptions, this is part of our work that we do in our spaces when we gather people. We collect just kind of an understanding together. We do this also in our various workshops and programming that we provide throughout our office and throughout the academic year and beyond. We like to incorporate that into our meetings, again, to help guide us in the way that we engage with others in the space, both in the chat or if you unmute, and really just good practices all around. So I'll go ahead and begin with those. We acknowledge the complexity of exploring roles within majority white spaces, which are common in academia. We do not want to contribute to heteronormativity, hypervisibility, tokenizing, and or educative labor of the participants who are Black, Indigenous, and or people of color, economically disenfranchised, disabled or gender nonconforming, religious minorities, immigrants, or undocumented persons. We consider positionality and power in this space on multiple levels, including race, gender, including identity and expression, sexuality, religion, nationality, ability, body size, class status, higher education positionality, including tenure, non-tenure, administrator, faculty, entry level, educational level, etc. We move into our beliefs and how we move in this space with what we believe. So we believe that everyone has a responsibility to advance this work. We believe that social justice work must happen at the individual, sociocultural, and institutional levels. We believe that creating a space with compassion requires each person to be valued and feel valued. We believe that while vulnerability is not easy for all, when more people are willing to be vulnerable, everyone's opportunity to learn and discover increases. We believe that self-reflection and individual work are critical if one wishes to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe that engaging in authentic dialogue deepens understanding. We believe that individuals and organizations do grow and change. Next slide, thank you. With our beliefs, we do have expectations. So we expect that each of you will remember that we are gathered here to connect with others within our community by listening and sharing. This is how we grow and learn. We expect that everyone will respect each other's confidentiality, pay attention to what is yours and what is yours, or what is not yours to share. We expect that you will speak from personal experience and help to create a space where others are willing to do the same, recognizing the value in learning about the lived experiences of yourself and others. We expect that you will leave room for both and all. Next slide, thank you. And our expectations continued. We expect that our folks in this meeting, including ourselves, will recognize that facilitators and presenters are people too and allow us to bring our full humanity into this space. We expect that you'll recognize that your comments and behaviors may have unintended impacts, so commit to owning the impact that you cause regardless of your intent. We expect that you will strive to be as fully focused and present in this experience as possible given your individual circumstances. And we expect that you make yourself vulnerable and expect vulnerability from others, but understand if your vulnerability is not fully reciprocated. We expect that you'll stay engaged and understand that engagement does not require you to lean into trauma. We expect for folks to experience discomfort at times and do not subject yourself to situations that produce trauma for you and do not create situations that produce trauma for others. And we expect and accept non-closure in this space. We are not here to fix or solve a problem or to judge anyone. All right. And with that, I'm really happy to introduce our various speakers for the morning. We will begin with Carrie Walling, who is the Director of Human Rights, the Human Rights Program and the Institute at the Institute of Global Studies. Carrie will be presenting on parental incarceration and children's human rights with justice intervention. So Carrie, thank you for being here this morning. I'll pass it over to you. And again, we're excited to hear what you have to share.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here in community with all of you. And I do want to just start with a brief note of gratitude to all of you, and also the sense of hope that all of you here give to me in these moments. And it's really important, all of the work that all of you are continuing to do on and off the campus. And we need it so much right now. And so I just really want to thank you and say that I'm very proud to be a part of this community where people are continuing to lean in on these values and not abandoning them. So thank you also to the office and all of the work that you support. And I see Amelia's everywhere all the time. So I know how hard all of you are working. So I am here today as the campus representative of a primarily community-led team. And my primary NGO partner in this work is the Children of Incarcerated Caregivers, a local non-governmental organization. And Lisette, would you please put in the chat the link to that, the CIC webpage, so people can see that. I'll go ahead and next slide, please. So we are really grateful to have received a residency with the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub, which you're going to hear more about after the break today. This team that I'm working with, we are trying to address the problem of parental incarceration here in the state of Minnesota. 1 in 6 of Minnesota's children has a parent who has experienced incarceration. And under international law, judges are required to consider the best interests of the child when their parents or caregiver interacts with the criminal legal system. And that is not always the case here in the United States. And so the goal of this team has been to try to change Minnesota policy to better protect the rights and the best interests of children whose caregivers face incarceration. And central to this for us is the idea that children themselves have their own personhood, that they themselves are independent rights bearers, And when they're of age, they should also be consulted in decisions that impact them. Next slide, please. So this is a photo of most of our collaborative team. The team includes folks from campus as well as community partners. So we have subject matter experts. We have undergraduate students, Masters of Human Rights students, PhD students, and law students on our team representing the campus. And then in terms of the community, we have formerly incarcerated parents. We have adult children whose parents had been incarcerated when they were children. We have NGO leaders, individuals from Department of Corrections. We have legal professionals like lawyers, a retired judge, a parole officer, retired legislature. And this has been the initial team, which is growing and expanding. Next slide, please. We can go ahead and just move on to the next slide as well. That's a summary there. So what our process was, we are in year 2 of a project that we hope will be ongoing for many years. But last academic year, we had a 2-semester experiential learning course where students got academic credit and diverse training. Students came from diverse backgrounds and personal experience. And the goal of the seminar was to have this set of students, graduate, professional, and graduate, who are doing research, exploring alternative policies, discussing options that center children at pretrial and sentencing. And then every month we met at the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub for an interactive monthly workshop with our policy team, which included those community experts along with those seminar students. And again, the team had diverse expertise in terms of identity and in terms of their own experiences. And the idea was to first build community and trust to identify policy solutions for how we could better protect children and their parents here in Minnesota. So next slide, please. We did this work throughout the year, and in April, we presented publicly the work that we had done as a way to try to get feedback from the broader community and get more community engagement and impact. We were very excited that we had 160 people participate in this symposium, and which included workshops and ways for people to also give us feedback. Next slide, please. And so what we came up with were a couple different things. Some of the things that we focused on were the family impacts and documenting those. Lisette, could you put the second link in the chat? We also developed a story map, which showed alternative policies from other states around the country. We focused on what we call the children's sentence and the ways in which children who are completely innocent are being punished and harmed. There is a picture on the screen here of a zine that was created by our students involved with the project that explored the problem of parental incarceration and how it impacts children, but also put out there a variety of different possible interventions. So we had focused primarily on 4 interventions: child-focused visitation, and 3, how to improve that, but 3 new potential policies, which I'd be happy to go into more detail. You can see them here on the screen. A model of intervention for child representation in court proceedings, a specialty caregiver court, and also emphasizing and protecting the child-parent relationship at pretrial. So go ahead, thank you. And so now we are in year 2, and as part of year 2, we've been expanding our team, clarifying our vision, narrowing our policy focus, and developing and testing these potential interventions. And eventually, we're hoping to continue that work into a 3rd year and begin to advocate for change. So I'm sharing with you here our renewed vision based on all the feedback that we've gotten through community consultation. And again, it's the policy team that develops these things collaboratively. But this is what we are working toward. So in the future, we envision a pretrial system. We've decided to focus as our first step on pretrial stages. So we envision a pretrial system that recognizes the full humanity of every family, ensuring that children's needs are considered at every stage. Whenever possible, we want parents and children to remain together in the community with the least restrictive conditions imposed, and that Minnesota courts will consistently assess and consider the impact that imposing bail or other conditions like detention will have on parental responsibilities and what's best for the child. So this is our steps of how we anticipate getting there. So right now we are working to include questions about pregnancy and caregiving responsibilities on pretrial forms, working and doing training with probation officers who are often tasked with gathering information for these forms and helping to guide them to summarize them in ways that can highlight the impacts on children. And then our work continues with trying to do some advocacy and information sharing and training with judges and trying to get judges to consider this information and make decisions that can mitigate harm to children. And at the same time, we need to develop and strengthen and just catalog and make accessible resources in the community and all of the wonderful work that is already being done that can be used and harnessed to support defendants and their children when they're at these pretrial stages. And trying to train, again, probation officers and lawyers to be able to connect defendants to those resources, really emphasizing that is particularly at the pretrial stage, people have not been convicted of committing any crime, that there may be allegations, but they are not proven. And everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And so we're really, really pushing for parents and children to stay together when it's in the best interests of the child for that to happen. Next, I think that might be our last slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's the end of the formal part of the presentation. So happy. Stephanie, are we doing any questions now or is that at the end?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
go ahead. Thank you. So it will just be open up for any questions for Carrie about their hub residency. And I'll just note a quick, human thing, which is why we have it in our grounding assumptions that our slide deck was a little bit off. So Carrie, thank you for jumping in. We kind of had queued up a little bit differently. So anybody who has questions for Carrie, please feel free to ask the questions. You can put that in the chat and we'll help kind of facilitate that if there are multiple questions and then make sure those questions get asked to you, Carrie, for any responses that you might have.
Thank you. I'll say, well, if people are thinking in case if they have questions, one of the challenges that we're really grappling with, and I would certainly appreciate advice on, is we would really like to get voices of youth and children into our process, and that's a place where we have struggled a little bit. So we have a lot of adult children, but we are hoping to build a youth advisory committee. And if any of you have created a youth advisory committee or know organizations or have partners who have those, we would really love to learn from other people's experiences.
Thank you, Carrie. We had a question that you sort of started answering. So Peggy asked in the chat, what pushback are you getting from the current legal system and what challenges? So if you want to add on to what you said to maybe address that part too.
Sure. I mean, I think the other challenge that we get is culturally in our society, we have a very punitive model of thinking, and that even sometimes in the name of equity is used as a way to argue that being a parent should not give somebody special consideration. So we get a lot of pushback that says, and sometimes the pushback is wrapped in equity arguments that having children shouldn't be a get out of jail free card. So I think that is one of the biggest arguments that we hear on a continual basis. And so it's really trying to emphasize our shared humanity, and that actually what we're really talking about are the rights of children as well as the rights of their caregivers. Again, emphasizing that people have been alleged to have committed a crime and that they haven't been convicted, but also that we're also talking about children's rights and the harms that happen to children and family and community. But that's one of the biggest pushbacks that we get. We're not at the stage where we are talking to legislatures yet. And the collaborative team, while it's already engaging with Department of Corrections and retired judges, that these are folks who are already predisposed and open. And so some of the challenges with the collaborative team is we come to this work from different spaces, and it takes a lot of work for us to strategize around the best language and how to move forward effectively as a team, because we know we're talking to friendly audiences and we're also talking to audiences who are somewhat opposed to the work we're doing. So again, we're really open to people who've already been doing a lot of work in this space and sharing strategies.
Amazing. Thank you. Any other questions that folks have for Carrie and this amazing work through this residency? Also, I like the artwork in your office, Carrie. It's very nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the idea of, so I'm getting some feedback on people to connect with. So thank you all for that.
Oh, awesome. Great.
And again, I just can't emphasize enough that this project, this work, the community building that's resulted from it, just absolutely could not have happened without the support and resources, both financial, but really the staff of the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub as well as this office. And so it's really been quite an honor to be able to do this work, but actually to learn from everybody in the process, because they're the experts and they're able to guide us well in this process. And working with community has been very powerful for us, but also for our community partners who are happy to be able to partner with the university. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Carrie. It's just really good, a testament to the importance and significance of community engagement, also to our amazing Liberal Arts Engagement Hub staff. Shout out Amanda, shout out Anna, shout out incoming folks, including you each, and all the folks that make this work. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing with our group about your very important project. We are going to kind of shift gears a little bit. We were going to do all the hub residencies together, but we're going to flip back and just reroute. You have to pivot sometimes in these meetings. So Jimmy Patino will be our next speaker. And if you wouldn't mind sharing the screen, Nicholas, we'll kind of get started from there. I'd like to welcome Jimmy, who has been really great, not only as a working partner with the Center for Race, Indigeneity, Disability, Gender, and Sexuality Studies, otherwise known as RIDGES, who celebrated their 10-year anniversary this year. But in addition to that, Jimmy has also been a great mentor and support system for me as a graduate student. So I just want to shout out Jimmy for all the care that you've provided during my graduate program. So it's great to have crossover, support throughout our systems. And I just want to give you just a quick personal shout out for that, but also thank you for the work that you've been doing in Ridges and continuing its very important legacy within the college. So I'll pass the slides over to you, and Nicholas will be able to advance slides whenever you're ready. So thanks, Jimmy.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Appreciate the invitation from the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and now Community Engagement and Equity. It's great to hear what other folks are doing. Thanks, Carrie, for that presentation on the wonderful work you are doing, and to the other panelists. I appreciate how the office is foregrounding community engagement by reaching out to folks who are actively doing it across campus. I should say that the Center for Ridges consists of 7 programs and departments at the university who are in ethnic, disability, gender studies, and have embedded in their very being community engagement. Many of our programs and departments are more than 50 years old, that come out of the civil rights movement. And their mandate from the community was basically to make the construction of university knowledge accessible and useful for aggrieved communities to solve their own problems. So it's exciting to foreground that and see what other folks are doing across campus. So the Ethnic Studies Initiative is a program Ridges has developed that supports K through 12 teachers, students, parents, and community in Minnesota as the Minnesota state policy is implementing ethnic studies into K through 12 through policy beginning next year. So we want to give a shout out to the Minnesota Humanities Center for the most recent funding to expand some of this work. And begin with kind of a accessible definition that we've been working on of ethnic studies, since it is often controversial in the public. We think it's a very kind of foundational way of thinking through things seriously, truthfully, and reflecting on them. So ethnic studies is the study of how race and ethnicity shape our lives in the United States. It highlights historical and contemporary injustices and invites us to consider how we make society more equitable. And I would add to that ethnic studies engages the rich traditions within aggrieved communities around solution making by their very kind of positionality in society. So we take that seriously. Important to this work, of course, is it's tied to community, as the theme is today. On the screen is images of the logos of several community partners, all of them under the umbrella of the Minnesota Ethnic Studies Coalition. Many of us, faculty and others at the U, have been working with the Ethnic Studies Coalition for many years now, and they are we have a formal relationship with them, which again is an umbrella organization for several community organizations who deeply care about ethnic studies and see its value and need in the larger society. So groups, I don't know if you can see this, but groups like the Asian American Organizing Project, Education Evolving, the League of Latinx Educators, Unidos, National Hmong Language Teachers Association, Minnesota Federation of Teachers, so on and so forth. And so we have a advisory board of community folks from the coalition that we refer to, which is vitally important because they give us the sense of what teachers and students need on the ground. So many members of that advisory board are K through 12 teachers themselves who are segue and connect us to communities in the K through 12 system. So next slide, please. We do this work in 4 key ways: evaluation, curriculum, licensure, and professional development. And so I'll briefly unpack some details of each. Next slide, please. So the first one I'll talk about is evaluation. We aim to create research and information to provide to school districts assistance on strategically implementing ethnic studies into their curriculum and into their school processes. It also aims to create studies that highlight empirical evidence about the contributions that ethnic studies makes for students, parents, and community. So on the screen is a brochure from one of the studies that we completed in 2022-2023 with the St. Paul School District. The St. Paul School District has been teaching a critical ethnic studies course for the last several years, obviously before the implementation of the state policy. So we wanted to evaluate what is going well, what needs more support, how students experience it, and things like this. So by the way, that QR code should work in terms of access to the full study. It's also available on our website. So a couple of examples of results from this are, for instance, students tended to build community in these courses. Over 2,000 students participated in the study. We teamed with CARI, which is the Center for Applied Research, something or other, who we work with to do the quantitative and qualitative research. So again, students tended to build community, for example, within their classes. And importantly, I think they challenge themselves to learn from their peers, even when they disagreed with them, which I think is vitally important in these politically divided times. And some critiques that were developed into recommendation included system-wide expansion to extend courses for the entire year. The course currently is half day, is a semester. To have earlier courses that gradually introduce students to ethnic studies themes so that when they take a full course like this, they'll be more grounded, which is actually what the policy, the legislation will eventually do, as ethnic studies will be introduced in early grades and throughout. So that's great. And so again, these are just, and also another result was teachers, giving teachers more time and resources to communicate with families on the process and what students are engaging and learning in ethnic studies. So those are a few of the results. But again, to create this evaluation in order to support the efficient implementation of ethnic studies and support teachers and students and school districts in the process. We are currently expanding this research to other districts, more diverse districts, suburban, rural, urban, and whatnot, and hope to have some results on that in the coming year. Next slide, please. Happy to answer questions. There's so much more on each that I could talk about, but we'll move on to licensure. We are currently working with the state licensure board, PELSB for short, to create a new pathway for teachers to basically get licensed in ethnic studies, just like any other social studies field. Ethnic studies is now, it's a full social studies strand, so it's required to be taught alongside economics, history, so on and so forth. And so with that being the reality now, teachers should have the opportunity, as they're becoming teachers and training and getting licensed, to be licensed in teaching ethnic studies. So we're working with the state licensure board to do that. It's kind of a lengthy process for learning, but we're glad we're involved with the process to make it happen. We're working across universities on this, actually. Metropolitan State, Macalester, and others are also in dialogue with this. Well, they'll eventually present their own licensure programs. And in-house, we are working on a licensure program in ethnic studies with the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, our colleagues over there, to make it a reality here on the U of M campus as well. We've learned that teachers, many folks are interested in teaching ethnic studies. And so just giving them the means to do that is super important. Next slide, please. Our other key intervention is in professional development. Basically, we teach teachers, right? Again, many teachers are interested in teaching ethnic studies. Some are already doing it and doing it kind of guerrilla style with what they can find. So we've engaged teachers to give them the content, to give them lessons on how to teach it. What does the scholarship say about Latino studies or African American studies, so on and so forth. And so they can then develop it into chunks that they can deliver to their age appropriate students, right? Whether they're teaching 8-year-olds or 15-year-olds or whatnot. So this is near and dear to my heart. It is how I got involved with K through 12 ethnic studies work more than a decade ago, basically doing professional development trainings and workshops for K through 12 teachers. They're the best students because they're interested in it and they're excited about it. And we had amazing conversations both on the content and, of course, the politics of implementing it in their particular institutions. And so I always enjoy that and glad that we can continue to offer this as part of our initiative. Examples pictured here is a workshop we had this summer entitled Introduction to Cambodian American Studies Through Story, Art, and Memory. We put out a call to award community or education organizations resources to put these on. And so we chose the Cambodian American Partnership of Minnesota to put this one on. And they did a fantastic job. Note in the picture the krampas, which are kind of a Cambodian sash of they're welcoming. So everybody got a krampa in the workshop. So that's one example of one that we did recently. Another one is hosted by the We Are One Education group, who did a workshop called Speaking Stories, Building Bridges, Centering Asian Ethnic Histories and Community Voices in K through 12. So those are a couple examples of those. This also entails mentorship connections. So many in the Minnesota Ethnic Studies Coalition and teachers in different districts are invested in mentoring teachers who want to work in ethnic studies and working closely with them. So that's that. Next slide, please. And last but not least, maybe one of our most important aspects and what we've given a lot of attention to lately is the development of curriculum, particularly lesson plans, so that teachers have on-hand access to resources and actual plans that they can use in class. So again, we have relationships with teachers to hear what they might need or want or what might be popular with the students or important to kind of delve more into. With our current grant funding, we are very privileged to have 3 research assistants or graduate students who are developing these lesson plans for teachers to use. And of course, this is free and accessible at our website. Lisette, could you post the link to our lesson plans, please? But here's a list of the ones that we have at the moment. For example, protest art, the movement for Black life, disability rights, movement and advocacy, Hmong history and culture, Karen history and culture, migrant and seasonal farm workers, Jim Crow of the North, Ojibwe history. And I'll show you an example of one of them from the West Side, St. Paul and Chicano movement lesson plan that we have. Could you go to the next slide, please? And what we do is develop the curriculum. Of course, on campus, we have access to faculty experts in these fields who give feedback and help develop the curriculum to make sure it's in line with the scholarship. And of course, also present them to teachers as well. Does this work? Is this useful for you in your context? What would be more helpful for the kinds of students that you teach? Things like that. So it is a kind of a collective process that we're very proud of. So here's just an example of one of the lessons about the West Side and the Chicano movement, particularly a lesson on the West Side Flats, which was a neighborhood that was near the Mississippi River. And it's called the West Side, but it's sort of south. So a map is important and so there's a map in the corner there, which is again, as an example of some of the resources that the lessons provide for students to understand these historical processes. And then there's a link, as you see here, to a documentary that and it gives students different activities to do to ignite their interest, to break off a piece of it and deliberate about it, to go into small groups and determine and discuss what they see in the film. Of course, the film there, what you see is a flooded area, which the West Side Flats was flooded often in and before the 1950s. There's the sign for the future site of Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. This was had a large population of Mexican Americans, although it was also a multi-ethnic community. And basically, the city in the 50s moved the community out because of flooding. Then built infrastructure to fix the flooding and gave it to industry, basically, which upset many of the community members, and many of us in Latino history in Minnesota argue that this was the beginning of the Mexican American civil rights movement here in Minnesota. So again, this is just an example, but some of the resources that this curriculum provides and a little snapshot of the lesson plans. So I think I'll stop there. Thanks for your attention. Thanks again for the invitation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, so I'm just looking at the chat to try to navigate if there are any comments or questions there. Natan just added a comment and a question at the end. So, such a hugely important enrichment and improvement of K-12 education in Minnesota. I wish this had been in place when I was growing up. Same. So the
Me
question
too.
here, question, there are well over 100 languages spoken in Minnesota homes and over 30 ethnocultural groups with significant representation in the state. How did you decide what to or who to include in this initiative and who to exclude?
Good question. We engage the existing fields of Black studies, of Latino studies, of American Indian studies, Asian American studies as a starting point. There's rich scholarship and information on this that reflects the diversity and the uniqueness of a lot of this is Minnesota centered. That's written into the policy, so we ground it in the communities that some of the larger communities that exist here, and have moved to give more attention to some of the unique groups that are here. The latest grant from the Humanities Center is really focused on language courses and teaching them through an ethnic studies lens. So we're working with folks, particularly in the Rochester School District, on this. And so we took that opportunity to focus on language and immigrant communities here that are somewhat unique to Minnesota. So Karen, Somali, Hmong, these kinds of folks. So we're again in dialogue with teachers and community to determine what kinds of interests there are and what kinds of topics. Thank you. Good question.
Great, thank you. And I think Amelius also has a question.
Yeah. So one, Jimmy, thanks you and the colleagues for working on this. When I first came to the college, I learned about some of the work that you and Keith Mays and others were doing in this space. And I mentioned that because that was 2014, 2015. So it shows that community engagement takes up time. You build relationships, and that's some of the things we've talked about even in the strategic planning process, like things don't necessarily get wrapped up in a year. So I just want to mention that. I'm just curious, given the current state of affairs as it relates to issues of diversity and education, any changes that you and your colleagues have had to make? Are there schools that are pulling back or concerned, just speaking about how this work is impacted by what's kind of going on at the federal level right now?
Yeah, thanks, Camille. That's a great question. First, yeah, we have been working on this for more than a decade, and it's so cool to see it grow, and the communities grow, and our relationships with teachers and students and community grow. And then the capacity to do the work through the Center of Ridges and through the coalition, which has grown in and of itself. Many of the folks in the coalition are activists who helped make this policy, right? That was a whole process that happened within that 10 to 15 years of work. So that's important to point out. Yeah, the context is interesting, I'll say. There is political pushback on this work to try to rescind these policies. So again, our community connections are vital for that, to know on the ground what's going on, to work with folks who are actively defending it, through the legislative process, through community organizing, through information campaigns or whatnot. And this is exactly why we do this kind of work, to communicate with the public what ethnic studies is. So that's one maybe pivot, or one maybe thing we're emphasizing more after getting some negative media surrounding our work, is to be a little more deliberate about engaging the public, which we already did. And, we emphasize our base of the parents and students and teachers who are doing the work. But to have impact on a broader dialogue of what ethnic studies is and how it's important. So hence the evaluation, and which gives empirical evidence for why this stuff is important. So on and so forth is one area of work we're doing. So again, such a privilege to have a coalition of folks and a wide variety of folks that we're working with to help us think through this in different aspects. I'm really curious what it looks like in rural areas, which is why we're trying to capture that experience in the evaluations. I mean, we can't talk to everybody across the state, but again, trying to engage and be a part of the discussion of how ethnic studies is fundamental to education has been something we're emphasizing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we just have a couple more questions from Carrie, and we can probably wrap this segment up just to keep us on time. But I think Carrie's questions are really important here. So Carrie mentions this is beautiful and amazing work. Have you made these available to faculty on campus who work with undergraduate students? And then also any thoughts about how your curricular work would be adaptable for undergraduate teaching, faculty here on campus as well, or even training with grad students? And then Carrie notes not to add more work, perhaps,
Yeah.
but perhaps those are partnerships. So thank you, Carrie,
Sure.
for that consideration for extra labor.
Yeah, no, thank you, Carrie. No, I actually was just telling colleagues, thinking about our own classes, that I think these lesson plans are just as useful in some cases for undergraduate work as well. And again, it's free and accessible through the link. The lesson plans we're coming up with, because they are based in scholarship, and yeah, they can be implemented at several levels. One of the really cool things with grad students is, again, we've been able to hire grad students to do this curricular work. And I mean, it's sort of I mean, it's definitely a learning process for them to deepen their understanding of certain topics and then work directly with faculty and then with teachers. I mean, I think that's a cool experience to both engage faculty who are experts in these fields, but then also go to the level of the classroom, in K through 12 and talk to teachers about how to make this accessible to, say, an eighth grader or something, right? Which they have expertise in. So yeah, so there's some ideas. I think it'd be cool to get more grad students involved with that. We are facing some funding challenges with the grants coming to an end at the end of this academic year. And so we're looking for more funding so we can expand this kind of works and continue to involve grad students. But yeah, for your undergraduate classes, I would check them out too to see what's useful in the resources that we have.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. It's very important work. Again, thank you for carrying on the torch with Ridges, 10 years anniversary. Just a lot of amazing legacy that's in your center and department and the significance of it. So we're grateful to have it and grateful to have your leadership and just the team. Shout out to Kobe for all the work that Kobe does in partnership with Ridges to do a lot, not only with the initiatives for K-12, but within our college, right? For the graduate students, the Ridges minor, and the collaboration with all the departments that are part of Ridges. So thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Kobe, and all the other partners that make all the good Ridges work expansive as it is. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We're going to be shifting gears to our next segment in our presentation. I'm so happy to welcome Polita. We have this presentation on the seed. And just as a note, we're moving back into our hub residencies. And these are just different organizations and residencies within the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub that serve different purposes in terms of different community organization. So Polita, thank you for being here and being able to present on your organizational work with the Hub. And I'll pass it right off to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the generous offer, invitation from the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity as well for me to join you all today and to represent the SEED project. But before I start, there might be something that carry over from what Jimmy just talked about into this kind of presentation. So I'd like to express my gratitude first and foremost to the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub and the staff. Amanda, Anna have been incredibly helpful and resourceful in every step of the way. Thank you for the Immigration Research Center, who also partnered with this residency to fund and co-sponsor their project. that. Thank you to the office, and also just want to second Carrie and Jimmy and thank the Riches, the Center for Race, Indigeneity, Disability, Gender, Sexuality Studies, because they have reached out many times, especially with the K-12 initiative that Jimmy just talked about. But next slides, please. So I just want to say that I am the CLA partner from the Department of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies, and my role is actually just to really try to help the seed projects bridge their resources and their initiative with academic work, with scholarships, and also with access to younger generations, including our undergraduate and graduate students at the University of Minnesota. Next slide, please. I feel really honored to be partnered with the Seed. I know them since I joined the university. They are the Seed Project, or Southeast Asian Diaspora Project, is a nonprofit community organization based in the Twin Cities, but in fact, their impact is quite global. That's how I came to know them. People from Germany recommended this organization to me, and they said that the Seed Project is actually located in the Twin Cities and have been making meaningful impact since 2011. So what is the Seed Project? So their mission, right, is to make accessible to Minnesota an accessible creative hub that provides streamlined workshops and tools to engage and share knowledge, histories, and language trainings in Khmer, Hmong, Lao, and Viet diaspora communities. The Seed's main mission is to cultivate Southeast Asian diaspora ecosystem that actively rethinks, reimagines, and reshapes what is possible in sustainable community development, with a pivoted focus on empowering Southeast Asian leaders, especially women and young people, through language and storytelling. And I would add as well that they have expanded that into sort of art form, so creative practices and art installation, for example. Next slide, please. So the proposed residency at the hub, the project that they would do during the residency at the hub in 2025 through May of 2026 is called Memories of Abundance. And as part of a series, this is a community festival and a grassroots story collection that commemorate and engage the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and the secret war in Laos. So the 2025 is the year where 50 years after the Saigon fall, our university have already done some of commemorative work. So it has been really incredible to see that we could do the work with our community as well. And Seed will, within this residency, they will use the space of the hub to gather community members in order to workshop and try to preserve first-person narrative from refugee and immigrant communities in order to capture their lived experiences before these histories are lost. So their focus is also to bridge the intergeneration as well, knowing that people who had gone through the Vietnam War or the secret war in Laos or the takeover of the Khmer Rouge are getting older, right? So their focus is on the elders' stories and how those stories can also build resilience, trust, and communities with the younger generations who often were born in the United States after the elders have fled the war in Southeast Asia. So this residency focuses really on the diasporic journey to Minnesota. Therefore, this bridge between the paradigm of undergraduate students at the university with the communities and also the younger generations of storytellers, artists, or filmmakers are really important here for this residency. So for the seed-led projects and events, they will host a series of storytelling sessions in 2025 and 2026. Next slide, please. And one of which has already happened on July 29th for the first time at the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub in Pillsbury Hall. If you haven't checked that place out, it's really an incredible space. And next slide, please. This event gather more than 60 community members where they discussed and workshopped their thoughts, memories, and put together a historical timeline alongside their life timeline as they arrived in Minnesota. So what is quite incredible as I experienced this event firsthand was how the co-leaders or co-conveners of the SEED project asked such important questions. What do you remember when you arrived in Minnesota? What happened that as a live event that was transformative for you? And then they asked the community members to put that post-it stories on the historical timeline that they have already built, right? So there's like an interactive sort of workshop method that was part of that event. And it was so rich to see that the communities, vary across ages and across, ethnic communities. So what was wonderful is that the Hub Liberal Arts Engagement space was also able to accommodate all of the needs of the communities. So this past event was organized to honor the experience of Southeast Asian diaspora community and their connection to their journey to the United States. Some post-it said that their most transformative life experience was when they got to go back to Cambodia. So the year and then the historical timeline allowed you to sort of really see how the history affects the lived experiences of the diaspora communities in Minnesota. And at the event, the community also co-created what they call the abundance altar, which symbolically serve as the centerpiece for a series of storytelling sessions that spotlight first-person narrative from Southeast Asian communities. So there would be objects or even like, the sort of that the type of food that each community eats. And so it was an altar that commemorates and cherished the culture and the roots and the cultural roots of these communities. And this type of artwork, will also be part of the SEED's mobile public art installation, where community members can continue to contribute stories, photos, objects that are meaningful to them culturally, and even give offerings to ancestors at this quote unquote abundance altar. So following the collection and transcription of these stories that they gather from these events at the residency, the SEED project will publish a storytelling anthology with textual narratives accompanied by media and translation. And this will be a really important part to my last slide, which is more about the curriculum at the university concerning Southeast Asia film and media cultures. So what they will contribute is also the type of snippets of the collected stories along this type of events, right? And then they will publish them alongside with historical timeline, just like what I just mentioned. So at the event, you have the historical timeline, and you also have the type of contribution from lived experiences. So what they will do at around the end of the residency, so meaning next year, is to kind of gather all these collected stories, images, contributions, memories, and put them together as a publication. And the specificity of the publication is also important here because they would translate and edit these stories and then publish it in what they call a zine. So zines are self-publications that have a homemade aesthetic style with a mixture of text and images, allowing for greater creative freedom from a commercial magazine publication. And they would put these scenes on their own database and website and use them as a tool for this type of K-12 curriculum. And it is a really great way to use self-publication as a kind of amplification of the voice of the community itself. So this published scene or anthology, if you want to call it that way, will also be shared with student ages 11 or more to use as part of that curriculum. Like I said, the SEED project also at the same time runs a lot of language training workshop. So this will be part of the type of the cultural knowledge to accompany and complement the community engagement that they are already doing. Last slide, please. Oh, this slide is also a good way for me to sort of show you the type of community agreements that the hub encourage us to do. So shout out to Amanda here and the hub and the liberal arts engagement that they provided this template, and this is just an excerpt because like working together as an academic and also working with the community for the first time. It's so important to have this community agreement where you draft out, where we draft out that type of understanding and mutual agreement. And this has been kind of almost like a key text for us as we navigate each event, each meeting, and it has been really helpful. It taught me so much as well about how our positionality as an academic, as a scholar at a higher education institution could work with and how to work with the community. And maybe they come from different approaches, and like the key of listening has been really helpful. So I think this part Amanda and I would be really helpful, would be really happy to share with you some of the practices that we do in terms of this community agreement in writing. Last slide, please. So the last part is how my partnership works with the SEED project. So I think the contact point here is quite interesting because it is actually our graduate student and communication studies who connect me with them precisely because they know that at the university there's already a curriculum, liberal arts approved courses about Southeast Asia. And these are the two samples of the courses that I teach regularly is AIMS, Asian and Middle Eastern Studies, 3256, graphic novels, War, Peace, and Protest. This includes materials, especially graphic novel, which is text and images, about the Vietnam War, about the Khmer Rouge, and about the many, the aftermath of war in Southeast Asia. And I also teach a lot of Southeast Asian cinema materials and have created work with help of the Imagine Fund, special events, curated works, film screenings, and filmmakers workshop. And I think this has really built a strength for this type of cultural, artistic community engagement work. And our partnership eventually really aims to expand access while simplifying how these materials are managed and strengthen each partner's ability to reach and connect with our broader Southeast Asian community. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polita. I just want to make a note that I volunteered to do Career Day at the Brooklyn Park Middle School. It's a STEAM school, so they do arts and STEM. And a lot of the students that were in my presentation were drawing, and they like to create a lot of like work that represented them through artwork. And so I think that connection with your coursework and then through zines offers a touch point for these students to actually know that they can pursue these different areas in terms of their undergraduate education that are deeply connected with art and culture and really important histories that often go untaught. And so I think that point of connection is incredibly valuable. So thank you for your work with SEED and then also with your educational endeavors with AIM. So thank you. Do we have any other questions for Polita in the chat? Also, Amanda had noted that she's happy to share the template for creating agreements if needed. Okay, so Jimmy actually added a question and a comment, so I'll just read it. This is amazing work that uses commemoration of a vital historical moment of the war in Southeast Asia. I'm assuming there are diverse responses and memories. How might your team think through and represent tensions or differences in how the Southeast Asian community and others remember history? And then there's one other question from Tracy in the meeting, and we'll get to you just next, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I think this part has always been the part of editing, right? Because at the end of the day, the seed project will have to do the type of editing work to put stories into the scenes and then select whether or not they're going to publish them. I think this part has been an ongoing conversation that focuses, of course, have specific communities in mind, right? And also just the idea of how elders are getting older and are, forgetting, and sometimes they don't even want to talk about these memories. So it has been kind of an ongoing process for us. And I don't think I could offer like a sort of, a paradigmatic resolution to that type of editing of what is included or selected. However, I think one thing that I've been trying to do as part of the scholarship that I do is to kind of offer alternative way of expressing or presenting memories, right? Like, and I think scenes is one thing, but also films with like the kind of ambiguities, right? That film could also sort of address. That's part of the conversation that we're having. That's why next year in the spring term, we're doing a lot more of film screenings to kind of showcase some types of alternative models of how we tell stories or how we remember, right? Because it's not an easy way to sort of address this question for sure. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, great. Thank you for that response and just again all the work. We have one more question from Tracy. It's so good to see you, Tracy. And I'll go ahead and let you on. Well, you already muted, so yeah, feel free to ask your question.
I took that chance to unmute. Thanks, Polita. This is so interesting and so important. And I love the many levels on which this project operates. I wonder if I would love to hear you say something a little bit more about how the act of storytelling and documentation does work for the storytellers themselves, for these knowledge keepers. What do you see as the kind of the effects of that for the people whose stories are being collected?
So I think the kind of, I think thank you so much, Tracy. I think this is also important questions because it deals with the kind of ethical work around how we approach different type of demography, right? Again, I've been trained to work with undergraduate students and graduate students, so my answer from my part is more based upon this type of like understanding and educational work. So I would say that, Stephanie is right. There's a lot more of like, how do we tell stories of, or even like remember in relation to medium specificity, right? So in this kind of technological changing world, it's so important to them. So that part is kind of a known thing. But one thing I realized as well, working with the elders, is that, the Seed Project has been so incredibly thoughtful in that they also brought in, communities, um, the people who work in psychology or even like therapy, to kind of be there at the event, right? And that type of understanding is just like it's reassuring. It's I don't know if where we can navigate that tension or resolve it, right? Because these are like really impactful. For example, the people who survived the genocide in during the Khmer Rouge, it is really is not easy. So, but at least we're trying to kind of navigate that type of remembrance and commemoration in a way that is also protective of each person's sort of like well-being. Yeah. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks.
Lita, thank you. For the sake of time, there's more question in the chat. If you wouldn't mind responding in the chat to that one, we're going to try to make time to keep us a little bit closer to our agenda, and welcome our next presenters. Wishing you all the luck with your classes and coursework, particularly in the spring. And again, thank you for participating and contributing to our meeting and our community in this meaningful way. So we'll go ahead and kind of pass it along to our next presenters. We have Hui and we have Eric who are presenting. Currently next, I think one more pin. There you go. All right, welcome to you both. Thank you for your work on your residency, which we'll go ahead and present on now. Nicholas will load up the slides for you all to go ahead and present. And so we have the University of Minnesota Hmong Corpus project. And there's multiple participants in this residency that go beyond the University of Minnesota, but also community partners, University of South Carolina, the University of British Columbia. But we welcome Hui and Eric for our presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction and also for the opportunity for us to share the work of the University of Minnesota Hmong Corpus project with you this morning. So as you can see on the slide, so we have, as Stephanie just mentioned, that we have multiple team members here. So I'll just kind of quickly mention them. Ning Vang, Chua Wang, Cici Lee, Annie Xie, Gili Guo, Pratiti Katoki, and Eric Frank and myself. So I'll be presenting with Eric this morning. So here's the maybe next slide, please. Here's the outline of our presentation. I will first give a brief introduction to our project and its history, and talk about the Hmong community in the US and the status of its language. I will then go over the goals of the project, key features of the corpus, as well as target audiences of our project. And Eric will then do a demo of the corpus website. And I will end with some notes about activities that we would like to do for the next phase of the project. Next slide, please. So about the project, so our project is building a searchable and annotated corpus of the Hmong language. The corpus will be free for people to access through the web. And we actually started thinking about building such a corpus as early as 2022. Since then, we have worked on researching tools and gathering materials to build it. Next slide, please. So last year, our project was selected for a residency project in the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub, and we are currently in our second residency year. And with the support of the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub, we have made significant progress with our work. And we have begun constructing a basic website and expect to launch it by the end of next spring with about 100,000 tokens of Hmong language materials. Next slide. Hmong is a marginalized language spoken in parts of Laos, Thailand, China, Vietnam, and also by Hmong communities in the US, France, and Australia. As many of you know, the Hmong people in the US are almost all ex-refugees and their descendants. The Hmong refugees came from Laos in the 70s and 80s. Next slide. There are two main Hmong dialects spoken in the US, White Hmong and Green Hmong, also called Hmong Do and Hmong Leng. As you can see on the slide, the two dialects have different spellings for the language, using either HM or M as the initial sounds for the language. And we spell HM with capital. We spell the language with capital HM to be inclusive of the different dialects. Next slide. So according to the 2020 census, there are over 260,000 Hmong people in the US. States with the largest Hmong populations are in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And the Twin Cities metro area has the largest urban population of Hmong in the US. Next slide. The Hmong community is experiencing a major disruption in intergenerational language transmission. The older generation remains fluent in Hmong and often speaks it exclusively. Many young adults are not fluent, and most children cannot speak Hmong at all. Next slide. Our project aims to support the community's efforts to maintain the language. In particular, we aim to amplify community voices and histories by making oral and written texts about the Hmong experience and history easily accessible. We also aim to expand access to education by enabling learners to study Hmong through the website, and as well as preserve language and culture through supporting teaching and learning of the Hmong language, and also to support Hmong language research. Next slide. Our corpus contains a variety of Hmong texts. These include stories, websites content, social media posts, academic writings, and also transcribed conversations. A subset of the text will be annotated with word-for-word translations in English, grammatical annotation, as well as full broad English translations. Our corpus is fully searchable. This means that users can search for Hmong words and find out how they are used in context. And also they can use the corpus as a bilingual Hmong English or English Hmong dictionary. We prioritize community partnerships, and we collaborate with Hmong Cultural Center as well as with Macalester College, as well as our individual community partners who are members of the project team. Next slide. So the targeted audiences of our website include community members, language learners, language educators, language researchers. For community members, they can learn about Hmong culture and experiences with the ability to choose whether the Hmong texts are presented with English translations. Language learners can study individual word meanings and their grammatical functions and see how they are used in sentences. They can also use a corpus as bilingual dictionary, as I mentioned earlier. Language educators can use the materials as a resource for their teaching, and language researchers can analyze the corpus data to discover systematic patterns of how language is used and to test their hypothesis. Next slide, please. Our approach to building the corpus can also serve as a model for other language communities besides Hmong who are considering building a similar type of corpus. Next, Eric will give a demo of our corpus website. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So you should see a Chrome browser. I'd like to give just a quick walkthrough of the website to show how the materials are presented and organized, and then give a sense of where we're at and where we're headed next. So we have three main views at this point. We have an About page, Collection view, and Texts view. And we'll start with About, which is our landing page. So this provides context for the project, and it'll eventually contain acknowledgments and as well as guides for the corpus and how to use it. Note that we've incorporated some embroidery from the Hmong Cultural Center, a local organization we've partnered with, as well as traditional iconography. And we hope to bring more of these elements into the site as we move forward with development and build this section into really a springboard for other resources. The second view is collections, and you could view this as a table of contents of our corpus. It allows you to view a list of collections that we manage, as well as texts that belong to each one of those collections. And then within each text, it gives you some extra data about the given text, where it came from, potential links if they're there, as well as the option to view the language data for that text. So we'll go ahead and view that text. And that'll bring us to our third view, which is texts here. And this is the location for viewing the actual language content of the corpus. So it gives you the ability to search, filter, and adjust views of the data in several different ways. So from the top, you can pick which language you want to search, provide some search text, or you can just filter the entire corpus by the collection, or drill down to the individual text level. And then finally, with the results of that data, you have several different options for viewing the text itself. So let's just quick walk through an example of this. Let's pick English and enter family. And you see the results. This is searching the entire corpus. We have results from a couple of different collections, immigrant stories and social media. And within each of those, we have matches in a couple of different texts. So we see we get 9 results, so that's 9 sentences across the corpus. So secondly, instead of specifying a search, what we could do is view the entire collection itself. So here, if we wanted to see all the immigrant stories, we could browse that entire collection. And you see we have 338 sentences in that collection. And then finally, we could drill down to a specific text. So here we'll go back to one of our immigrant stories and load that up. And then we get to view the actual individual text itself. And we see we have 15 sentences in this text. And finally, for each of these results above, each of these ways of grouping and searching the data, we have several different ways of viewing the language data itself. So one is the base option of just the Hmong original text itself, meant for speakers of Hmong to be able to read. Secondly, we can view that alongside the English translation. And so the goal here is to provide a translation that captures the overall meaning of the sentence. And then thirdly, we can view the gloss or the word-by-word translation. And here the goal is to provide a detailed word-by-word analysis that includes both word translation, but also grammatical annotation. So taken together, filtering, searching, adjusting the views of the text gives us a number of different ways to navigate, view, and use the corpus. So that wraps up our quick demo. I'll hand it back to the slides to wrap up and talk about where we're headed next.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So for the next phase of our project, we hope to expand our content with an emphasis on expanding Hmong audiovisual materials, adding transcripts and subtitles. Next slide, please. We also hope to create a dictionary view of the website that works as a bilingual Hmong English and English Hmong dictionary, where we will show selected examples of how individual words are used in sentences. We also want to add audio recordings of dictionary entries. And next slides, please. And finally, we look forward to receiving feedback from users and also identify areas for improvement. And thank you. And that's all for our presentation this morning.
Amazing. Thank you both. We often talk about in our office like the importance of having websites that are intuitive and easy to navigate. Because if you work in the University of Minnesota and do any kind of communications, you can understand some of our software is less intuitive. So wonderful work on that website, and thank you so much for the demo that you've provided. Also, the significance of keeping language alive and having that be part of the diasporic experience, and also the community experience with folks that have had to journey to the United States and specifically Minnesota, and how we can play a role in that. I think Minnesota has a lot of different language options in our various Regis departments. And so it's really amazing that you all are able to partner with the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub for this amazing project. I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. So if you have questions, will you please put them in the chat? Again, we're happy to relay them. Amanda also said thank you. Thank you to all the residency folks for the amazing work that you all do. All right, just checking here. Nothing else in the chat. Oh, let's see. Sherry, thank you for your question. And then we have, let's see. So Carrie mentioned, do you have feedback or information for how the resource is being used so far?
The website is not live right now. The plan is to have it be accessible for people in the end of spring next year. So we really haven't gotten people using it yet. But I think we do have some feedback from our presentations. So we made we presented our work at the councils of the annual meeting of the councils of teachers of Southeast Asian languages. And I think one of the feedback we gotten was that our word for word translations and the grammatical information, they might look a bit unfamiliar, like they seem a little bit technical, especially for people who do not have a linguistics background. So we are working on having a glossary and having a bit more explanation about those terms so that it can be useful for language learners and teachers as well. Yes.
Hesitant to unmute because my dog's having a moment. So if you hear barking, everyone, apologies. But I think that's a very useful aspect for like teachers and students who might have to work through some of the different communications that they have, and having that tool will be very helpful. So I'm excited for that, and then also excited with your attention to detail about the linguistics. Any other questions that we have? More thank yous in the chat for your amazing work. Amazing, important, and effective work, more specifically. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you both. Thank you to all our presenters from the Hub residencies and sharing about the significance of community engagement and partnership with our office, and the significance of what it means to be part of the CLA community and expand that beyond just our college. So again, amazing work, important work. important and effective work. I'll use Carrie's words here. But with that, we will go ahead and transition to our break. And I think I will transfer this over to Amelius to give some words before our break. And then we will go ahead and do that break.
Because we went a little over, our break's going to be a little shorter, so we will have 7 minutes. So we will reconvene at 10:47. So thanks again to our presenters, and we'll see you in 7 minutes. Thanks.
Community and want things that happen in the hub to be informed by the community. In the time that I've been here, we've seen use of the hub basically skyrocket. When I first started, we were not only new, but still coming out of the pandemic. And so last year, the hub tracked 300 separate uses of the space, which was a 45% increase over the previous year. And requests are only continuing to grow. You can see our request form is linked here. You can also email me or Anna if you just want to check on availability or something, but we will eventually send you to the request form. And I also recommend, since we are sort of getting more and more requests, to get on the calendar as soon as you can. Next slide. This is just some additional information about the space and our amenities. We're near parking and public transit. We're set up with technology to support hybrid events fairly well. There are 2 administrative offices, a reception area, a kitchenette, and then, of course, the large collaborative space, which is where the events happen. And that space is designed to be really flexible. Everything can move and be removed. You can set up the room how you need it. And we also have a really cool 3D tour of the hub that's linked here and that Lattice worked with us to create. Next slide. So the other side of our work is our programming, which currently consists, next slide, of these signature elements. Our residencies, which you heard from several of those today, a workshop series, the Interdisciplinary Collaborative Workshop Award, Visionary Community Fellowship, and our advisory committee. Next slide. So our residency program is probably the most well-known. This is a year-long program where people apply and propose a collaborative project that addresses an important social issue. There needs to be at least one partner from CLA and one partner from the community working together. And kind of one change this year that we have is that CLA graduate students are now able to apply themselves. So there does not need to be a faculty or staff member named on the application anymore. But if a grad student does want to apply, they need to consult with the hub first, because there's just a number of different factors that come with graduate student status that we need to make sure to convey information about. Residencies come with up to $15,000 in funding, as well as access to other university resources, which is really beneficial for the community partners. We're actually now in our 7th year of residencies because we had a 2-year pilot. And we have supported 37 projects, which engage a diverse range of topics and issues. Next slide. And the exciting news is that this week we launched our call for proposals for next year's hub residencies, which run from July 2026 through June 2027. So applications are now open with a deadline of March 6th. And we have several info sessions coming up in January for those who would like to learn more. You can also always reach out to me and I'm happy to chat. Next slide. We also offer a workshop series throughout the year that is centered around techniques and best practices of community-engaged humanities work. We've offered workshops on a variety of topics, including oral histories, community archiving, story mapping. One thing that's really unique, I think, to the Hub's workshops is that we see about equal attendance from community members and university people all learning together. And then this spring, we're organizing a series around the theme of crisis and change, with the first workshop on January 29th with presenters from Save Our Signs, a constellation of librarians, public historians, and data experts who are based out of the U of M libraries. And they're meeting this moment to protect endangered cultural resources at our national parks. So we'll have presentation and discussion around that.
Next slide. The Interdisciplinary Collaborative Workshop Award is our newest program. It's not new to the college, but it's new to the hub administering it. And we re-envisioned the ICW to put community engagement at the center. The ICW is intended to spur new collaborations between and across disciplines among scholars in CLA and the broader university community and community partners. So it's a 2 to 3 year award of up to $75,000 and also supports 4 semesters of a GA for the project. We were really excited to take this on because it just allows us to support community engaged research on a much larger scope and scale. We run the cycle every other year, so this is an off year. And last year, the award went to a project titled Archival Repatriation, Addressing Data Sovereignty in UMN Collections with Kat Hayes as the PI. Next slide. The Visionary Community Fellowship is a joint program that we run with the Institute for Advanced Study. It's designed to invite dialogue between university scholars, community leaders, artists, activists, and surrounding community. The program provides a platform for community members to lead the university in identifying and prioritizing programming and research around themes of importance. So the fellow receives a stipend and a year in residency at the IAS to pursue research and develop community programming in collaboration with the IAS and the hub. Ariana Hennies, who's pictured here, is now in her 2nd year as a fellow, and she's been building an organization called the Movida Initiative, which seeks to build political power and belonging for Midwest Latina communities. Next slide. And then lastly, we have an advisory committee that plays a really important role in the operation of the hub. They help to ensure that the perspectives of the hub's constituencies basically are represented in our programming and policies. And we are seeking new members. So if you are interested, please reach out and I can share more about that process. Next slide. This is just our latest annual report, so I encourage you to take a look. There's a lot in there if you'd like to learn more. And then next slide. And then the best way really to stay connected is through our newsletter, which goes out twice a month. And you are also welcome to send us events, anything that's community engaged, and we're happy to help promote those for you. So I think that is all that I have. If there are any questions, happy to take those.
Thank you, Amanda. All right. So yeah, it's a really great opportunity. I love having the hub. First of all, Pillsbury is amazing. And if you've ever been in there, the turkeys are also very friendly around Pillsbury. So I know that we just passed some of Turkey Day, but they still hang out over by the windows at the hub. But I've been able to use the hub myself through other organizations, and the process for requesting the space has been incredibly seamless. And I just shout out the work again of you, Amanda, of Anna, and incoming with you each, and formerly with Kevin. So yes. Any other questions for Amanda and the hub team? The turkeys are intense, y'all. I joked because I don't see questions. I'm going to tell y'all a little quick story that I was walking in from parking, and it was like a scene in Jurassic Park, and there was probably like no lie, like a dozen turkeys crossing behind Coffee Memorial Union when I'm trying to get into the building, and they're like running across the way. But they are absolutely shenanigans and a core part of our university community, but they also hang out at Pillsbury. So be safe around the turkeys. Our little dinosaurs are always with us. Um, just some thanks for all that you do in the chat, Amanda. Yeah. And that it is a bright light. And I definitely agree. We need a lot of light right now. I feel like there's some other, oh, thank you, Amelius. Question.
So yeah, just a comment. One, Amanda and her colleagues do great work, and she was our first hire. She was my first hire as the interim director for the hub. The hub came from our previous strategic plan. about engagement. And so I think that's important to mention. But I also think there are ways that the hub operates that Amanda didn't mention. She did a great presentation, but didn't mention, but I think are important because the hub is intended to kind of change how engagement happens in the college and in the university. So, for example, entities outside the university has a policy that they have to be charged to use space if they're outside the university. We were able to get the real estate office to agree to an equity-based approach, meaning if Target, let's say, wanted to use the space, they pay full price. If a nonprofit that doesn't have the resources that Target has wants to use the space, they might pay nothing or they might pay less. So that is a unique way to charge external entities for space. And that's something that the hub does. Amanda mentioned that there's an advisory committee. We were intentional, and many of you have served on university committees, internal or ones that involve people outside the U. What typically happens is there's lots of people from the U and then one or two people from the community. The hub charter is really explicit about that there should be parity between people essentially people who get paid by the university to do work and members of the community who serve on it, because there are power issues. And so again, the hub, in addition to the great programming that they do, there are some guidelines and principles that guide how they engage and how they do their work that really speak to how engagement should happen. And hopefully we want to expand some of that thinking and that mindset to the way engagement happens across the college. And that's things we've talked about a lot as we relate to the strategic planning process that we've been working on. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Amanda, thank you for your time, for your dedication, and all the amazing work that you put into the hub and the organizations that come through its doors. Addition to that, shout out Anna. Again, I know the admin work is a huge part of what makes the hub a success. So your partnership together and keeping everything afloat has just been amazing. So definitely want to give a shout out to both of you for all the hard work, the dedication, and the care that you always present in that space and give. So we'll go ahead and pass it on to our next section of our program. Thank you again, Amanda. And we'll move on to our panel. Amelius is going to share a couple words about our panel, and then I will switch over to put my moderator hat on and I'll be there. So go ahead, Amelius.
Yep, so I'm gonna put on my hat in terms of my role in the college before I join the panel. So I wanted to set some context for this panel discussion that Stephanie's going to moderate. Dean Aviles has stated several times in various venues that issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion should be embedded into our strategic planning process. Those of you who remember the roadmap, one of the roadmap goals was diversity. That is not the case in our current strategic planning process, but what the dean has said is that it should be embedded across the process and into all of the goals, priority areas. So I want to quote from a message that he shared with the college recently about Compass 2030. When speaking about our 4 strategic priorities, he said that embedded within each is an unwavering commitment to our core values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a deep conviction that the liberal arts are not only relevant, but essential to addressing the complex challenges of our time. So I wanted to bring the dean's directives and his intentions to life. And so, or in order to do that, at the beginning of this process, back in May, for those of you who have been part of the strategic planning process may remember, there was a kickoff event and I made a presentation to all the members there about how to embed diversity, equity, inclusion into the planning process. And then since then, I've had several follow-up conversations with the project managers who played a key role in this team. While the planning process is not over, we felt it was important as a measure of accountability to take an opportunity to highlight the sum of the ways that this has happened so far. It's important because what we're doing with intention is sadly rare. There is often lip service paid to ensuring that DEI considerations are actively part of an important process such as strategic planning. I've been through many at the U, and I will say this hasn't been done in this way. But there's a commitment from the dean, and that commitment extends to his cabinet and the leads of the various strategic priority teams for making sure this happens. And I think we have a good story to tell, and I'm glad that my colleagues will be joining me in telling it. So with that, I'll take off my one hat, I'll put on my hat as a co-lead, and then I'll turn this over to Stephanie.
Great, thank you. All right, so we are joined today by several panelists that have put in a lot of work and commitment towards the strategic plan. A lot of the folks who are welcome today as part of this presentation also do a lot within the community in their various roles. Many of them chairs of departments or current or former associate deans. We have a powerhouse team working for the best future of our college through this strategic plan. So I just wanted to start out by saying thank you to all of you and your hard work in leading these groups and your participation in these groups. So with that, I'll share the different groups and the folks that are representing them today. If you wouldn't mind sharing, just again, repeating your name and then also sharing your department, that would be amazing for each of the panelists. I'll go ahead and start with this full list, and then I'll pass it on. If you go in list order, that would be great, starting with Liza. So first, we welcome our Innovation and Research Strategic Planning Working Group, and the representation for that is Liza Feinstack. Next, we will have our Healthy Workplace representative, which is Peggy Nelson. And then we will have our Student Success, which is Leanne Broik. And then we have Valerie Belair Gagnon. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. And then we'll have our Impact and Public Engagement representative, Interim Director Amelius White, our oldie but a goodie here, our cool dude who will be representing that section. So Liza, if you'll please introduce yourself, your pronouns, and your department, that would be great. And then we'll go to Peggy next.
Hi, I'm Liza Feinstack. I use pronouns she, her, and I am chair and professor in the Department of Speech Language Hearing Sciences.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peggy Nelson. I use she, her pronouns. My faculty home is Department of Speech Language Hearing Sciences. We're well represented here, and I'm Associate Dean for faculty in Johnston Hall.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leanne Kasman-Broik. I'm a professor in the Department of Writing Studies and on the Student Success team with Valerie, who I think will go next.
Hi, I'm Valerie Belair-Gagnon, and you can pronounce it however you are able to. And I'm housed at the Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication.
Thank you. Go ahead, Melis.
You know me, the oldie but goodie. But I'm co-chair or co-lead for the Impact and Public Engagement Strategic Planning Priority.
And I'll just clarify, my oldie comment was your longevity and tenure at the U, not your age.
No. OG. You said OG. You really
OG.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, you're good.
Fantastic. Okay. So thank you everybody for being here. We're going to go ahead and ask questions. We have these core areas that we're focusing on for our strategic plan. But as I mentioned in previous meetings, if you've been in them with me, and as Amelius had mentioned previous to this, embedding DEI was part of this. It is not a separate section of the strategic plan. It's meant to be part and parcel to everything that we're doing. It's not meant to be an afterthought or a side dish at a meal. It's actually supposed to be part of everything. So with that in mind, I will be asking the following questions to the panelists regarding, DEI and their working group and the considerations of that. So the first question that's on the screen: how would you characterize the extent to which diverse perspectives and lived experiences were represented on your strategic priority team, among your contributors, and or among the individuals or groups you consulted with in working on your strategic priority? And just to kind of get us kicked off, Peggy, would you mind starting with that one? And
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. So I'm Healthy Workplace, and we came up with goals that are about reasonable workload, transparent communication, safety, being your authentic self, and then getting the professional development that you need to do that. So I would say that we really started with as diverse perspectives as we could do. One of the things we thought about a lot was power differentials in a healthy workplace. We really spent a lot of time on that. So we tried to consult, especially staff with different kinds of experiences. And we particularly also looked at the employee engagement surveys and the responses from different groups on the engagement surveys and their satisfaction with the workplace. So I'd say those were the places that we started with and talked about basically every time we met.
Great. Leanne, I'll pass it on over to you and Valerie about thinking about this in a student context, which is really important considering our student population. We have the largest college in the state. We have the most diverse college in the university system. And so I'd love to hear more about how you approach this with that in mind.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start and just want to acknowledge too, our leadership team includes Valerie and myself, but also Leah Chamberlain, who's now the Chief Officer of Student Success, and Catherine Scheil, who's the Associate Dean, and Michelle Yenner. So we've been having a lot of these conversations, and I think we started really by taking the guidelines from Amelius and really explicitly discussing them in our group. We actually followed up in the summer and had a survey of our members as well to remind ourselves of the guidelines that Amelius provided. And then we looked at data, of course, of the student makeup and different responses we had gotten from students, and then realized we needed to get more feedback. And so we consulted very broadly, including with student groups, and that made a huge difference. So our team was only however big the team was, and we asked members to reach out. And then some of our members reached out to multiple student groups. And I'm going to pass this over to Valerie to talk about that more too.
Yeah, and I think that when we did, we have a list that if you're interested, we can share. Of course, it's not perfect, but when we tried to consult, at some point we really had this focus on students, but we also tried to focus with consult with faculty, staff, community members, alumni. I think we also did that, and try to have as broad as a reach as possible. But in addition to that sort of broad approach that we had in the consultation, we also tried, when we were consulting with people, to ask specific questions about why certain ideas may work or not work for certain communities. And so, for example, one of the things that we heard was that from faculty was about certain types of funding, like emergency funds, and how these fundings are built for certain groups of people, but they're not necessarily considering the cultural background of other groups of students, for example, that are not willing to apply because this is not part of their of how they're working in their community or living in their community. So for us, that kind of comments and feedbacks from the community showed us that we really needed to think a little bit more deeply about how we talk to different people, and then and also what we were saying that we wanted to offer in terms of plan for the student success and how we could support these different communities. So,
thank you, Liza. I cue you up.
Yeah, I'm going to say a lot of the same approaches that the other teams used. But I also want to highlight, I've been really impressed just with the team itself. So it was a volunteer, a call went out, who wants to be a part of this? And then I don't know who was the master to put all our teams together, but they really do represent a variety of positions across the college, as well as different disciplines. So, we have music, psychology, statistics, the Institute for Global Studies, Ridges, like so much representation in our group. And I've been so impressed how everyone's working together and really voicing and representing their field, their perspectives, and their experiences. And then aside from that, we reached out to all the unit leaders across the college with specific questions about how they are, the resources that are supporting their research and creative works, or lack of, what the barriers are to get some more information to help guide our priorities.
And then I would say, a couple of things. There was a lot of intention with regard to who was on the team. As was said, folks applied to be members, and so that was our starting point. I recruited some people, working with Tracy, in terms of folks who do different work in the college in engagement, but also being mindful of just the ways that the differences that matter, our gender, race, et cetera. But we were also intentional, and Leanne mentioned this. One of the suggestions that I shared at the presentation I've made was when the group gets together, rather than just, have everyone go around the room, what's your name, your title, how long you've been here, talk about who's around the table, and so for those who have done the university's ECHO workshops, the people who facilitate those, they will say, my name's Amelius White, I use he and him pronouns, I'm a Black gay male, I'm neurotypical, I'm, lower socioeconomic background growing up. They will introduce themselves and talk about their various identities and lived experiences to the extent people are willing to do so. So we spent some time at our first group meeting doing that, and that lets you know who's around the table, but also who's not. And so you can be mindful of when you're consulting or what other groups you need to bring in. The other thing I will say is that we actively engaged our contributors. We invited them to all meetings, so they came as often as they wanted to. We shared all the documents with them, again, to bring more voices in the room. And then as it relates to kind of consulting with community partners, we relied on the members of the team members and the community and the contributors to suggest people who we should connect with. And that group was fairly broad and diverse because those people, the work that they're doing across the college, it included small nonprofits, it included people from the corporate sector, it included people from a variety at K through 12, a variety of types of identity-based organizations. So I think we did fairly well in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing for that question. I think what I also heard repeated is like the importance of representation and thinking about a broader scale and representation in a diverse way. So not just racially, but thinking about the various levels of departmental, disciplinary representation, thinking about age groups, thinking about ability, religion, all the different things that we encounter in our college and that enrich our college also should be thought of in each step of the strategic plan. So I appreciate you all tying that in. With that, I'll go ahead and move to our second question. And Leanne, I'm going to kick it off to you first. So just a heads up. I see you writing them in my screen, so you are it. So our next question, within the context of your strategic planning priority, where are issues related to diversity, equity, inclusion most prevalent? What suggestions emerge for addressing or potentially addressing some of these issues? And I know they come up in all the different areas, innovation and research. We think about the student experience, when we think about a healthy workplace, all these aspects will grapple with this in various ways. So if you wouldn't mind responding to that, we'll kind of kick it off. And Leanne, sorry, you got called on by the teacher in this session. So
that's great. That's great. And I'll say a few things and then toss it to Valerie, who will have more to say on this question too. But I would highlight three things. I mean, we did get a lot of feedback early on as we were intentionally addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things we found in our early drafts, so these drafts of the statements, is that we were addressing inclusion, but not equity. That was something that was pointed out with feedback that we were receiving. And so we weren't providing clear or meaningful ways to address inequities in the student experience. And it's important to remember the student success is addressing both undergraduate and graduate. So we really needed to expand the way that we were talking about this in our early drafts. So that was a really important thing. Also in early drafts, it was pointed out that we were using deficit language. So like what is wrong or how do we fix our problems with with whatever student issues there are. And we started to address that language. And instead of talking about fixing problems, we talked about building upon strengths that promoted equity. Or instead of talking about systemic challenges, we tried to change that language to say we're committed to enhancing equity and improving student outcomes by addressing system barriers. So we really shifted our language. The other issue that came up and is still something that is ongoing we need to address is high impact practices. So how do students, this is a very important value that's come up over and over again as we've consulted with people, and Dean Avila's, it's a priority as well. But how are students experiencing high impact practices? What do we mean by them? What barriers might exist, additional costs, for example, or access to these experiences and faculty support. So that's something that came up over and over again, as well as helping to support faculty to offer high impact experiences. So I'll stop there and toss it over to Valerie for other things.
And actually, while we would love that too, I'm just mindful of time. So Leanne, thank you for your comment, and Valerie, for the potential that you were about to bring to us. But I do want to toggle it just to get a little representation. I notice the time and we want to be thoughtful of everybody. So one, Leanne, thank you, and apologies for the slight rush just due to the timing, which these meetings, we try to aim to be on time, but this is where we are. So Liza, I'll pass it to you for a brief response to this, then Peggy, then Emilius. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just uplift a few things that, came to light. So one is academic freedom. So the idea of, making sure that within our actions that we're really building a safe environment for all research and creative works. We prioritize students and, integrating them with research and innovation in our plan, given that they are the largest and most diverse group of individuals within our college. I'll highlight one other thing. We really tried to, think about time and knowing that if we're kind of calling to do more, that means that we need to take other things away or streamline processes. So to make a system that is more equitable for everyone and manageable. So I'll just highlight those.
And from Healthy Workplace, I'd say we talked a lot about belonging as it evolved. We focused a lot on staff and the workplace, and that sense of belonging feels different to everybody. And when you have a big power differential, as I mentioned, it's really hard to know where and how you belong, and that people are able to belong as their authentic selves. They can be honest, authentic, their own human beings, and they can fit and belong in the work structure. We spent a lot of time on those issues.
I think for impact and public engagement, I'll build on what Leanne said about high impact experiences. We want our students to do more community engaged learning classes, internships with nonprofits, et cetera. There are financial barriers to those things in terms of opportunity costs. You can do an internship with a nonprofit and not get paid for it, but you need money. And so how do we do that? There are concerns that community partners have, particularly from vulnerable communities right now, about having information that they're working with the college, how that information may get used. Some of our faculty who have historically marginalized identities are concerned about their safety or working with certain organizations and how that might be used. That kind of gets to that notion of academic freedom. And then I just want to lift up what Amanda said earlier. We're mindful that we need to have relationships that are built in trust and respect with organizations, because the university hasn't always done that. And so while we might want to do that, there may be baggage from things that have happened before. So we just need to kind of lean into being respectful, acknowledging that we're not the only holders and creators of knowledge, and recognizing our past. So that's the other way that those issues have manifested in our work.
Great. Thank you all. I'm just going to have you all give maybe 1 to 2 sentences to answer just a kind of final closing thought for the panel, and thinking about your own visions and hopes, because a lot of you are in leadership positions, your own DEI hopes in your own specific area for your working group, and how you see that. So just 1 to 2 sentences as we wrap up. Again, I appreciate you working within our timeline. That's a little bit rushed at the end, unfortunately, but I'll pass it over to Valerie just to give a quick response.
Yeah, number one is, as we look forward to developing and putting the plan into action is to make sure that there's also equity principles and who gets to enact the plan. And then the second sentence is that also that we are working right now on a series of principle that hopefully will drive our own plan. And I think that's important to continue to think about that because it's hard to do it within one action in particular. But if those principles are embedded, it helps to be more reflective of the goals that we have.
All right, Liza, you want to go ahead?
Sorry, it's hard to get one sentence here, but
I know.
I would say,
I'm sorry.
Just that equitable distribution of access of time, resources across everyone, all stages, all disciplines, really having that the heart of everything we're trying to do.
Peggy?
I'd say that we've decided that clear and transparent communication makes a big difference. When things are transparent, equity can follow, belonging can follow, and that we need set aside professional development also to bring us all along on this journey so that we do embed these things into our structures.
Awesome.
And I will just say, and I'll put in the chat that I will sharing the document that I shared when I met with the different teams back in May. And even as I look at the work from our own committee or our own group, the DEI may not be, those considerations may not be clear in the action steps, but they will be clearer when these initiatives start to be built, because that's where, how does one apply? To something, that's where thinking about who gets left out, how things are structured, that's where you'll see more of this work. And I think, and I've talked about this with the dean and others, the embedding DI doesn't just end with the work that we've done. It's, this process is not over. And so it will continue, and, hopefully there'll be an opportunity to come back and provide an update about where we are. And I thank all my colleagues for being intentional, because that's how this happens. It doesn't happen by osmosis. You have to actually think about it and not just hope, good things will happen at the end. So now I'm going to transition to wrapping up.
Thank you all.
So yeah, thank you all.
Thank you all for taking the time today. And also again, for your work on your various groups. So we'll pass it off to Amelius for our closing remarks, but again, thank you very much.
And thank you, Stephanie, for helping to moderate, or for moderating. Thanks to all the presenters today, highlighting the great work that happens in CLA. I want to thank Nicholas for his work with the tech. Stephanie and Adriana and Lizette are my team for help making this happen today, and all the work today and leading up to it. And I just want to say, I've said this before, these are hard times, and that's not even the right word, but I don't want to curse at work. But I'm lucky that I get to come to work and do good work and help advance these important issues, and that I work with good people. And so I don't take that for granted. Next week, we will send out an evaluation. So we want your input about what you liked, what we could do better, what other topics you'd like to hear about. So hopefully you'll take a couple of minutes to respond to that. And then as you're wrapping up your semester in the coming weeks, best of luck. I hope that all of you, despite all the things that are happening, find some ways to engage in something that brings you joy. And then lastly, stay safe, stay well, and perhaps most important, stay hopeful. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your winter break. Thank you.
Thank you.